And so, yes, we need to be problematizing the perpetrators in that context, not just saying, these are old school, old rape myths. The woman needs to protect themselves. If only she was just not that tipsy, she wouldn't have got raped. I mean, there's a really cool quote that I want to say it's a psychologist from the States, and she said, we need to raise our boys to think of rape as, to view rape as something that is unthinkable as cannibalism. So taking advantage of someone sexually or aggressively or forcibly raping them should be, seen as something that's just so abhorrent and so unthinkable that it just doesn't happen. But we've got at the moment such a gradient scale of where sort of normal heterosexuality seeps into coercive and then sexual assault and then rape. Right. Do you know what I mean?
So so it's a bit more, it's harder to see the distinction sometimes. And,
So, even like the 1950s programs you might see where the guys are sort of sex crazy and all they want is a girl to go on a date with, and they're always pushing the boundary and she's always setting the boundary. So the men are always seen as sexual aggressors and the woman is the gatekeeper. Those sorts of things actually feed into a version of heterosexuality, for example, that's already kind of set up in a problematic, unequal way where the two sexual actors occupy quite different roles, and an extreme version of it is the rape culture stuff and, someone aggressively taking sex when someone else doesn't want it. So do you know what I mean? That gradient between normal heterosexuality, there's some, and then, there's obviously mutual respectful consensual sex that happens, and then there's other forms where there's a pressuring by one or the other, even if the man doesn't really realize he's doing it or a person doesn't realize they're doing it, and then it sort of escalates into. So do you know what I mean? So what I'm saying, it's not black and white. There's actually a gradient of coerciveness that exists in our culture when it comes to sexuality, and that's quite concerning. And even things like, this might sound outdated, but a guy feeling like, I've bought you drinks all night, so now you owe me something,
Right, yeah.
And not seeing that as coercion, or, I've bought you dinner, so you better put out, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's not too, there's such an element of economics to it. People think they're putting an investment in. And in fact, it's kind of everywhere where we're supposed to think in those terms of putting investments in
that whole marketing discourse and the economic discourse is pretty...
it's even how National's telling us to vote.
Yes,
and in their latest ad, they're saying vote National on the basis of the economy and all this.
Yes.
So make a wise economic choice
decision. That's very much... it's so... wrapped up in a neoliberal understanding of citizenship and governance. So, since the late 70s and early 80s, we've had the neoliberal economic doctrine enter our world. Thank you, Margie and Margaret Witherall and the rest.
And Ronnie.
Yeah, and there are some people who see that as the ultimate form of governance. So it's about, privatization, freedom of individual rights, and the supposed ideal or the supposed idea that everybody comes into the world on an equal footing, and if you just work hard and you invest hard and you are a good economic citizen, you'll do well. And we know the world doesn't work that way. We know different people come into this world at different with different privileges and different burdens, and it's not an even playing field. And in terms of that whole neoliberal economic ideology, what's happened is it's infiltrated how we do everything and how we think about everything on a daily basis, even when it comes to sex. Right. So you go, hey, I've taken to this more expensive restaurant and, I've made an investment in you for the night, or even something like, I've invested in this relationship for 2 years, so the notion of leaving, even if it's not working for me, becomes more difficult.
Because I'm now at a loss or an economic loss, which it just takes love and passion all out of it.
And I also think a neoliberal discourse is an individualized discourse. It's an individualistic discourse, so it's all about taking care of yourself, taking care of your lot, not really caring about the rest of the world. And that, this is both in terms of it's really interesting that we're talking about this because I'm both talking as an academic and perhaps maybe a little bit less as a politician, but they're kind of coming together. And, in terms of the research that I do, neoliberalism and in the way in which it's infiltrated daily life, it's very problematic for identity, subjecthood, and social relating and broader citizenship and governance. It's not very good for us because it creates a very individualistic, single person oriented approach to living rather than an humanitarian, a compassionate, a social justice, a social inclusive approach to taking care of everyone and looking out for everyone, sharing our wealth.
Also maximises anxiety. We end up with such a neurotic population.
Well, and a highly medicated population, which is quite concerning. We have, and I don't know whether it's over medication, but we know there's a lot of prescriptions, a lot of people on anti-anxiety, anti-depression medication, and is that just over prescription or an outcome of a society that is not that compassionate to its people?
A few days ago, I believe, or maybe even just yesterday or the day before, you said that the Internet Party is a feminist party.
Yes.
And
some people loved that, some people didn't.
Some people didn't. Some people said, but Kim.com made his jokes previously. Which I can't actually remember exactly what those jokes were, but your response to that was to say that he is a product of a culture that we are needing to change.
Yeah, and I think, it probably was reported a little bit more extremely, but what I wanted to take, I didn't want to talk on behalf of Kim. What I wanted to do is go, look, obviously what was said was problematic, and I'm not excusing that, but we need to think of this in a broader context rather than vilifying an individual and going, right, that's it, this is it, and Pani, you have no credit because you're associating with someone who we think is sexist, and that's fine. What I wanted to bring into the discussion was this is a symptom of a broader problem. And, when we've got our Prime Minister calling our party leader a sugar baby, that is part and parcel of the same problematic, sexist, old boys, misogynistic culture we need to get rid of. And I certainly know, as Lila has said, it's the young people that we associate with in our party just do not understand that comment. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean? What does he mean? It's so disrespectful. It's not just a bit of joke. It's so disrespectful. And
perhaps it comes from a very fearful place.
Yep. Yeah,
because I remember right when she was announced as leader, I thought, oh my God, suddenly,
it got real. Things got real.
Yeah, things got real.
Yeah, because definitely not a joke party now.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think what's also important is we have a lot of strong female representation in our party. We're over 40% women. In our top 10 candidates, our top 10 candidates, 50% of them are women. And obviously,
and you're at number 7.
Number 7, yes. And Lila's obviously got a strong track record in terms of women's rights. She was the Minister of Women's Affairs for a number of years.
She was the one who brought in paid
parental leave. Yes, which we're wanting to double, by the way, one of our policies. So I think, we're in good company, and, we need to understand that something like Internet Party or Internet Mana is a complex and multifaceted party. Okay, we're not a one-liner. We're not just touting one thing. Okay, so at the end of the day, one of John Key's favourite phrases, we are a party that's about social justice and equality. That's it. And under that, there's lots of different goals, aims, and concerns that we have. And one of them is the welfare of women and or gender issues. And I think, that's something that I think people need to understand, that it's not a one-trick pony. We've got lots of different...
And it also looks like the partnership
Yes.
is actually quite bearing fruit. It's
absolutely.
It's something that, when in May when that
Yes.
when that all happened, and you got the usual suspects
Yes.
saying, "Oh, look at this! They're just trying to, scam the system
Yes,
a bit,
yes.
and they'll break up as soon as the election's
Yeah.
done. They've
No.
got their review in 5 weeks." But that review, is that what I thought? Well, of course they'll have a
Yes,
review. I
yes.
mean,
Gotta say,
Linda she went through the alliance
Yes.
and the split with Jim.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think, that's it was just a safety net, and the partnership has worked so amazingly. And I think both parties bring such an amazing complementary force together. And at the core foundation is social justice and equality, and we're approaching that from different perspectives. So Internet Party is about taking us into the future with technological advancement, tapping into the digital economy, creating an independent sort of nation that doesn't hide behind someone like the US. And the Mana faction is bringing a kaupapa Māori perspective and a strong social justice approach to taking care of everyone. And it's not. I think some people sort of think that Mana's just about being a certain ethnicity. It's not. Kaupapa Māori is about everyone, I certainly know in my research, when I do qualitative research, and qualitative research requires a lot of ethical engagement with the research process and the research participants. And I certainly know, as I started to learn more about Kaupapa Māori worldview and Kaupapa Māori research, I realised in terms of a worldview and in terms of research practice, it is just an amazing way of doing things. It's just an amazing way of doing things for everyone. It's not just for Māori. So I just think I love the fact that we are so different but so complementary. How different can you get from like a indigenous, kaupapa Māori party that wants to appeal to all, then a party that's founded by, a German billionaire that's all about the internet. It's great, but it just fits so well because our core aims are the same: social justice and equality, economic independence, sharing our wealth, looking after our people.